virtual summit maybe 2 years ago. Um, and I was just amazed at his energy and his authenticity, and he's just an all-around fun and great guy. He's a founder of something called SparkPlug Agility, and he can tell you more about that. But he's got this, actually, I'm really excited about. He's launched a trainer immersion program called Trip that I got to put a little plug in for you, Chris. Even I want to make you guys aware he did not ask me to plug that. I've been doing that on my own because I think it's awesome, and I can't wait to be a part of it when my schedule allows. So really looking forward to that sometime, Chris. But anyway, without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing and let Chris take over. He's much more exciting than me.
Y'all see me and hear me okay? Hopefully you can. Hopefully you can. That's what we want. One of the awesome things about seeing folks, and I see a lot of names. Folks, thanks for coming on out, especially in the evening. I see some former students, current students actually. I see some friends. Folks, thanks for taking the time. This is to carve out time in the evening to come out and see folks and all. It's awesome, and I really appreciate it. So what I was going to do real quick, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let me know, Jamie, once things look okay on your end. Tell me when you can see it. Boom. See it okay? All right, folks. Well, let me go ahead, and I always like to move some of this around so that I can see stuff too. Okay. So what I'd like to do in this meetup is talk about some questions that you can ask. And some of my students have heard me talk about some of these topics before. I kind of want to do a little bit of remix on some of them. When you're working with a group of people, it's helpful to explore things, to reflect, to figure out, okay, what are some of the things that we want to ask either ourselves individually or one another and explore as a group? And that's what I want to do for you in this particular event tonight. Before I dive into that, just a little bit about me. I'm not a huge fan of doing the whole long bio, big CV or anything like that. But if you would like to reach out to me, this is my contact information. This is my email as well as Twitter. You can find me on Twitter pretty easily, LinkedIn as well. Email is pretty good. I don't swipe right or swipe left, nothing like that. But if you wanted to reach out, please feel free to. I am one of the people who's lucky enough to travel this world, at least in the before times, to work with professionals like yourselves all over the world. And it's really fun to be able to do that. And I'll tell you right now, I miss y'all. I cannot wait till we're all in the same place and we can have some fun and snort and giggle and eat some grilled cheese, because I miss that a lot. Being able to work with professionals all over the world is something that I don't want to say I took it for granted, but I miss getting on the plane. I miss seeing people, feeling the energy of being out in a city, being able to talk to people, being in the room. And it is really good, even to connect like this. So thank you all for making the time. I represent an organization called SparkPlug Agility. We bring a number of things to the table, and one of those is speaking events like this. So there's a lot of times people have called to perform keynotes, workshops, anything like that. If there's something like that that's interesting and you enjoy, anything from my setup, my voice, to some of the content you hear, please feel free to reach out. From a consulting standpoint, we'll provide some services, very focused services. While agility is in our name, we do focus on a number of things from both delivery, operations, sales, HR. We can provide some advice if you'll need to. We get calls quite a bit for that when folks like, hey, what have you seen? What, could you give us some guidance on this? We love to do that. Professional coaching is something that we always offered kind of on a referral only basis, kind of secret menu. For those of you who like secret menus at like the burger places, shout out to the West Coast. In and out, I miss it. I miss cheeseburgers. Do y'all miss cheeseburgers? I miss cheeseburgers a lot. Sorry, it's later in the day. I want to eat. I'm sorry. But professional coaching, that was on the secret menu before, but now we're actually letting people know. These are relationships that we view very strong, powerful human emotional relationships where we can work with our clients to help them achieve their goals, that inspired future. Whatever your goals will be, we would love to work that journey with you. Training is what a lot of people will call us for, and what we're known for, both certified and non-certified efforts. We're in the middle of a long stretch of delivery right now. See some familiar faces coming out. Hi, everyone. Good to see you again. We would love to work with you in any way, shape, or form. So all of our classes are available in a private format. If you wanted to take a look at what we do, sparkplugagility.com, that's our organization's website. And what Jamie said earlier, Jamie, seriously, thank you for the shout out on it. Our trainer immersion program is our most ambitious thing to this date. This is focused on helping you develop your skills as an instructor. Doesn't matter if you're building a 30-minute brown bag all the way to a multi-year college level curriculum. This is a program that combines a mixture of on-demand learning, self-paced instruction, live instruction with us, and also engaging with the community going on. We've partnered with the International Consortium for Agile for this and anticipate it growing into an entire certification path in the future. If you're a coach, if you're a trainer, if you're a speaker, if you're a consultant, we have something for you. And we're really excited. We're targeting that next cohort on March 7th. It's 5 full days. We can't wait to do it. We're really looking forward to it. So enough about all that. Don't get into that. I want to address a couple things up front first. Have you gone to one of these talks and everyone's like, will I get the slides? You probably have already seen that. By the way, if you wanted to like react and laugh, please feel free to do that. Will I get the slides? I'm gonna say no, but guess what? We are going to give you some bonus content at the end where you can download a digest of all this information you're going to hear about, including those questions. So I want to let you know, I'll show you a link here in a little bit. Hey, Chris, is this one of those sessions where I can just pop up my hand and we do some open Q&A? I don't do that either. Not for this one. I work with everyone. There was a lot of stuff we wanted to talk about, but you can feel free to engage afterwards. Send us an email, send me a note. I love hearing from folks. And even if it's like to talk about watches, grilled cheese, whatever you want, just send me a note. We want to hear from that. So I invite you here at the end of the day, we're about to get going. I'd love you to take a deep breath in through your nose. Just a second. Take a deep breath in through your nose and out through the mouth. It's been a long day. All that email, it's a lot. Let's take another deep breath. Another deep breath. Out through the mouth. Feels good. Got the window open in the studio, nice fresh air, nice and crisp. Love it. Feels good. What I'd like to do is I'd like you to think of some people. I'd like you to think of the people that you are around the most. Those 5, 6, 7, 8 people. Let's call them your team for right now. Think about them. You see their faces? Imagine their names. Your squad. Think about them. What I want you to do as you think about them is imagine if you were describing that group to someone brand new who they've never met. What I want you to do is I want you to imagine, or if you want to write it down, I encourage that as well. How would you describe that group using 3 words? Think about that. Maybe that. Might want to jot them down if you want. It's helpful. And it's really an interesting question I'll pose to people. Be like, how would you describe that group of people you're around the most using 3 words? When I think of my best team, I think of very specific words. The team that I've been so lucky to be a part of for the better part of the last 20 years, we've been putting on an event, a celebration. And it happens once a year in the before times out in Las Vegas. And it's all around a certain type of video game. It's called fighting games. When these people come together in the spirit of competition, people come together from all over the world to figure out who is really the best at this game or this game or this game. And being able to create this environment for like the most powerful moments in young people's lives, that's what it's all about. And there's hundreds of people who make this happen. So if any of you are here, I miss you and I can't wait to see you this year. But the core group that's been together to work on this, to make the decisions, to be together, these are some of the people that are the closest to me in the entire world. If something happened to me after my immediate family, that would probably be the next phone call. And this is a group that it kind of transcends some of the relationships you're normally in. We've been there for each other through the tough times, the good times, moments, they say weddings, funerals, first children, power of attorney, scary stuff. We're there. And when I think about this and I see this picture, and this is from Mandalay Bay Events Arena, this is a couple of years ago. By the way, don't do live TV. If anyone ever does live TV, don't do live TV. It is dreadful. Just people are like, are you in the picture? I'm down here. See those steps? That's me with the headset on with the truck being like, oh, we're going to make this commercial break. But you'll see my friend down there with his hands up like this. He's doing commentary, and young people are doing the most amazing things. They're showing off their skills. And to provide these moments are amazing. When I think of the squad that does this, that really brings people out of their seat, I think 3 words. We're a diverse group that grew up from very, very different family structures, socioeconomic standpoints, political beliefs, religious backgrounds, you name it. Very diverse group, very diverse group. And that lets us bring a lot of different points of view out when we're having our conversations. We're aligned, though, on trying to provide the most amazing environment for these moments to happen. But the third word I like to use to describe us is we're family, and I don't take that word lightly. We're family. I miss these people so much. Do you have someone that you miss right now that, like, just with current events you haven't seen in a while? Shoot, I see names right here I can't wait to see. I miss them. I mean, we still can see each other like this, but I can't wait to see someone, to be in the same room, to be able to slap hands, give that hug. We're family, and we've been there for each other for a very long time. Those are the 3 words that I would use to describe my team. What are the 3 words you would describe for yours? Think about that. Somebody who you never met, what are the 3 words you would use? Thinking of those 3 words, I'm going to want you to reflect on those people as I ask you some questions. Here are some of the questions I want to ask you. We're going to ask a whole bunch of questions. These are the things that you can explore yourself or with the people around you. Here's one of the questions I want to ask you. Can your group define what a real team is in one sentence that everyone can agree upon? Think about that. Maybe. Hopefully. What about this one? What are the attributes that your group needs to consider when defining what a real team looks like? Well, this is one of the things that we're going to be looking at. These questions, they're kind of a lead-in to some of the individual things, because let me tell you about how I think a team is. This one sentence and the research that is behind it has inspired me to talk about this stuff all over the place. Here's how I want you to start to think about a real team. A real team is a small number of people using a complementary set of skills, and they're committed to a common purpose, a set of performance goals that are tied to that purpose, an agreed upon co-developed working approach towards making that purpose a reality, all the while holding each other mutually accountable. That's what a real team looks like. That's a pretty big sentence. Some of my students are like, oh, I remember this. Some of you may have seen this a couple of days ago. Thinking about it that way, it's like, wow, that's a whole lot. You might want to ask yourself again, based on that sentence, are we a real team? Maybe you're like, I'm not sure. Do you have some more questions we could look into? Absolutely. Let me ask you a few more questions. Think of those people that you wrote 3 words for, okay? Think of that. Here's a question I want to ask you. Are your group discussions like lively, open, interactive, but where everyone is contributing equally? Yeah, it can be lively, but if like you got like a mouth like me in the room and another mouth like me in the room, and you got a couple people just like, Facebook, Twitter. Is everyone chipping in? That's a question to explore. How about this one? How easy is it for you to schedule a meeting where everyone can huddle up on relatively short notice? Think about the last meeting invite you send out. Sorry, I can't make it. Oh, I'm sorry, I got a thing. I got another meeting. You seen that? It's like every day for a lot of us. Think of those questions though. Those are some things to think about. You ever thought that maybe the team was too big? Maybe. The reason why I mention that is that teams can be any group of people, 2 or more, 25, 100, whatever you want. Thing is, the most effective teams that we've read about and done research on number 10 or less. 10 or less. Getting to that place to find that one sentence, it's kind of hard to be there. All those factors lined up for a huge group. But here's how I want you to think about it. 10 or less. Imagine if each of these dots is a person. See all those lines? You want to know what those lines could represent? Imagine like a team of 3, 4, 5, or 6. Each of those lines is a calendar that you need to coordinate with. Think about sending an invite to 3 people. Is someone going to decline? I can't make it. I have a conflict. That gets a lot more difficult the more people that you have. So think about sending an invite to 6. Or you know what each line also represents? Each of those lines represents a line of communication. Shoot, back in the day, we had to remember phone numbers. Now we have these things that store them all. Email addresses, contact information. Yeah, you can Rolodex it, but that's another thing you have to remember. Kind of lose track after it gets too big. Each of those lines, that's a personal relationship with another human being, with its own dynamics. That's another person with their own personality. As you add a line, that's another personality you have to contend with. And you want to know what each one of those lines is? Each of those lines is a person that you have to get to a place of shared understanding with on so many things. Thinking of it the other way, that's a chance to have misunderstanding. That's a chance to get your signals crossed, where the lines trip over one another. Just from 3 to 6, look from 3 lines to 15. As you add more people, consider more calendars, more contacts to remember, more relationships to manage, more personalities to consider, more opportunities to have a misunderstanding. Once you cross over 10, it's tough. It's real tough. So when you think about it, maybe this group isn't a team. That's okay. But maybe it is a team. But how challenging really is it? Are we small enough in number? Do we have the right people on the squad? Or are we just too big? These things to think about. Here's some more questions, though. Remember how that was a big sentence? How about this one? How often do your members on your group, how often do they help themselves trying to level up their skills, or maybe taking the time for someone else to help learn and develop something else? Hey, I don't know how to do this. Let me share with you. Sitting down, sharing information. I don't know how to do this. Hey, let me help you. How often does that happen? How often do you spend trying to learn yourself? Are there any skills on your group that are critical to your success that are either lacking or completely missing? Sometimes people, when I ask them that, they go, I don't know. It's like, well, what is it you do here? It's like, I don't know that either. Just leave me alone. Just let me punch the clock, Chris. Stop making me think. These are some questions that you have to consider, because when it comes to skills, this is something that you have to really take into account as a group of people. When you're trying to build a team and you're saying, what are the skills we need? All too often we focus in on just the ones that bring horsepower, technical skills, functional skills. That's it. And I see this all too often. Think about the job descriptions that you see. It's like 5 years of this, 10 years of this, and you're like, okay, like I see that you have these skills, but like, is that the only thing you really need? Why would I want to hire, a lawyer to do a doctor's job? Like, imagine you're trying to get some legislation passed around some new medicine. Like, I probably wouldn't want the lawyer handling the doctor's part of it. And I certainly wouldn't want the doctor handling the lawyer's part of it. I have a great relationship with my lawyer. I would not want him giving me medical advice, even though he tries to. That's not the only thing to consider, because how many of you know somebody who's really, really smart? They're great at their job, but they have trouble making decisions. Can't really do that critical thinking. Can't really solve problems. This is a set of skills that we need to just acknowledge, not only acknowledge, grow and develop for individuals and for groups. This is something one of my coaching clients I'm working with right now, they're trying to grow in this manner, and it's wonderful and beautiful to see it. But from the starting point of where they are, I'm like, wow, imagine an entire squad of folks who just can't really navigate things and they struggle with it. This is a combination you have to consider: technical and functional skills, but also problem solving and decision making. That's not the whole recipe. How many of you know somebody who's wicked smart, can make decisions, have no problem, and they're awful to be around? You know someone like that? I know a lot of those. That's the thing. You actually have to have some interpersonal skills, some human skills. You got that friend or coworker that you just, it's enough. This is, and I mean, not to mention the impacts of what's happened over the last 2 years. We go out, I go to the store, it's like people forgot how to people. You notice that? You're going out, it's like, whoa, what is this? What? You have to have that interpersonal skill to actually communicate with one another, treat each other with a little bit of class, a little bit of decency. I am so blessed to have some people in my life that I can see on a regular basis from my different communities. And it's like, they are rays of sunshine. And it's like, wow, they didn't forget how to people. And I'm so grateful for that. Some of my other friends, it's like they've been buried underground for 10 years. And it's like the scene out of Jumanji. What year is it? I'm like, hi, I just talked to you last week. This is the combination that you need. You need those technical and functional skills, but you have to combine that with the ability with critical thinking, making decisions, but also those interpersonal and human skills. And you know what we only see on job descriptions? Those. Think about the last job description you saw. Did they ask you, hey, are you a pain in the neck? Are you awful? Sure. I'm awful. Sure. You have to consider this entire mix of skills and kind of like a big old casserole. A lot of questions to ask on that. What about this one? What about this one? How do you and your members in your group, do you communicate your team's purpose in discussions with outsiders? How do you do it? Like the same level of energy, same similar message? Or do you even know what it is? Something to ask. What about this one? Does your group have performance goals that actually call for a concrete set of collective work products? Think about that. When a lot of people hear performance, you know what they think of? Metrics. Some of you heard me talk about that quite a bit. Thinking about, hey, are we meeting these performance goals? Well, what are they tied to? We don't know. That happens so often in organizations. The combination of these two things is very, very important for any group success. So some of the anchors I like to talk about. Anytime you're figuring out what marks are we trying to hit, they need to relate directly to the reason this group exists. What is the performance need? Why does this group of people, amazing people, have to come together? What are they trying to accomplish? Whose lives are they trying to impact in this world? What's the even reason for being? The big question, why? When you have some kind of common, meaningful purpose, this is what gets people out of bed. And I've worked on teams where that purpose wasn't exactly exciting. Do I want to wake up at 0500 to rushing through traffic and it's all dark and you can't see? And what's my purpose? To respond to the maximum number of tickets within the service level agreement as dictated by the statement of work? I don't know about you, but that certainly makes me want to stay in bed a little bit longer with my little kitty. Cheddar cheese. Just hanging out. Common, meaningful purpose. This gets the wind in everyone's sails. When you have some performance goals that are tied to that, this is something that everyone seems to miss. Why are we coming in? Why are we working together? What these goals are, these are indicators that we as a squad can look at and say is, okay, we're looking at that. This tells us that that purpose is becoming a reality. These are indicators that our purpose is becoming real. That's how you have to think of it. The combination of these two, that'll let you know if you're at least tracking and moving in the right direction. Does our performance goals that we've identified tie to the reason we exist? Two of the big anchors you have to think about. Here's some more questions to consider. Does your working approach, how you work together, does it require all members to contribute equivalent amounts of real work? You ever been on one of those teams where not everybody was pulling at the same rate? You ever been on one of those? I have. It's like being in a boat and not everybody's pulling on the ropes or pulling on the oars. That's a frustrating thing if you're sitting there like, y'all need to not eat as much grilled cheese. But is the way that you work together, does everyone chip in evenly? That's a good question to ask. Well, here's another question I always love to ask, because so many people come to me, especially in our Scrum classes and other frameworks that we talk about. They're like, how do I make this work? How do I make it work? How do I get 10 people who speak 15 languages spreading across 15 time zones? How do we force them to contribute and work together in Scrum? The question I always like to ask is, how did this group develop and decide the way that they are actually going to work together? What was the decision-making process? Can you show me how they picked it? Did this group even choose to use that way of working? A lot of times, they didn't have a choice. That's something that's you really need to ask yourselves as a group. When you don't have a choice in how you work, you think you're going to be excited about it? You probably won't. Teams have to develop their working approach together. How are we going to all have a hand in making that purpose a reality? This is another one of those anchors. Our purpose is something we have to develop. The goals are the indicators that show that this purpose is becoming a reality. But how are we going to work together to make that purpose real? Well, keeping an eye on those indicators. And here's a rule of thumb that I want to share with you. You as a team should spend an equivalent amount of time crafting your working approach along with crafting your purpose. Should be about the same amount of time. And I had a student once tell me, they're like, Chris, I can tell you, we had the same amount of time. I was like, really, why is that? They said, I was forced to go to some training class and sign a piece of paper if that's how we would work. And then our purpose was given to us by the business. And so it was 0 on both. Does that count? I was like, it plays. Really, it should be push. But think about that. How are we going to work together? Are you going to figure out how are we going to turn that purpose into a reality? That's the way of working that's going to stick. And when you don't have a choice in that, it's probably not going to. Some more questions to ask. I know I'm giving you a lot. This is what this is all about. These are questions you want to explore. Here's another question. Is your group individually and jointly accountable for your team's purpose, goals, working approach, and collective work products. You're like, Chris, that's a lot of commas. But think about it. Are we actually answerable to all those things? What about this one? What is your definition of the word accountability? And would the other members of your team define it in the same way? You know what a lot of people think of when they see the word accountable? They think blame. That's what a lot of people think. In the spirit of teamwork, though, I want you to start to think of it a little bit differently. Accountability is all about the sincere promises that we make to one another as a squad, rooted in commitment and trust, being vulnerable to one another and saying, here's collectively what I'm going to do to try to make sure that we can win together. Consider this sentence: by promising to hold ourselves accountable to the team's goals, we each earn the right to express our views about all aspects of the team's effort and to have our views receive a fair and constructive hearing. See something, say something. It should be in a position where if I'm on your team and I'm not pulling my weight, you should be able to be like, Chris, hey, what's going on with that, man? See something, say something. Think of it this way. Do you have that friend or coworker that's 5 minutes late to every meeting? When's the last time someone said something? Is that you? Shoot, how many of you have gone to a meeting and you get this? Did you come out to see this and stare at my name the whole time? Probably not. I should have put a glamour shot, a couple less pounds on that one. But think about it. When's the last time someone said something? Hey, what's the deal coming in late, man? Starts there. It starts there. That's how I want you to start to think about this, because no group is ever going to cross over into becoming a real team until they can have those kind of hard conversations. Think of the difference between these two statements. The boss holds me accountable. The source of discipline is outside of the team. We're going to escalate that. The boss holds me accountable. That's a lot different than the phrase, we hold ourselves accountable to each other. And I'll tell you right now, on my team, the one I was telling about before, you got to say stuff sometimes. Sometimes there's behaviors that are not helping the team and you have to say something. And sometimes you have to make decisions. And that's hard, especially when you're a family, especially when you've been together that long. It's hard. Think about this. Small enough in number. All those lines. That mix of skills, technical, functional, problem solving, decision making, interpersonal, human skills, that big casserole, having that common purpose that we've come up with together to put wind in our sails, those performance goals, indicators that make our purpose a reality. It lets us know that we're tracking, we're getting stuff done. That working approach that we came up with together, how are we going to turn that purpose into a reality, all the while holding ourselves mutually accountable? That one sentence has a lot of pieces in it, and you can ask yourselves a whole lot of questions in all of those different areas. These are the different elements that make up a real team. Thinking about all that, now that I've talked about it a bit, ask yourself again, is that group that you were thinking about earlier that you wrote 3 words for, are they a real team? Or do we have to shore some things up? Well, don't be worried. I want to give you a couple things to think about with regards to some of the steps you can take. Here's some places that you can start with. First, you want to consider the mix of all of those different types of skills. It's one thing to be like, oh, I can perform this coding language, or I know this particular software tool. That's only one thing. But when was the last time you were able to go, okay, some problem solving, decision making, how can we have constructive conflict? How can we have a dialogue adding to this common pool of meaning? Can we have these talks? Can we figure out how to solve problems as a group? But what about just being cordial to one another? Being like, seriously, people forgot how to human. That's what it seems to me. I talk to people and I'm like, what? Like, you hear yourself? Even before that, consider how we would communicate with one another, not just with these. Text, Discord, email, phone, all this. Have you ever read one of your emails out loud? Do you have that friend or coworker that writes the email and you're like, what? And you can completely misinterpret it? Yeah, that happens. Do you think that might go either way? Consider all of those skills, all three of those types of skills, three areas rather, in this different types. Try revisiting your team's purpose as a group. And if you're in one of those organizations where it's our purpose was delivered to us by the business, maybe consider if that's a real purpose or not, and maybe ask some bigger questions. Here's another question or area you can spend. You want to make sure whatever performance goals that you as a team come up with are tied to that purpose. These are indicators that you are getting the job done as a squad, making that purpose a reality. You should spend an equal amount of time crafting that purpose as well as your working approach. You can also do this. Discuss what being accountable really means. Ask people to define it. Put up one word: accountability. How would you define that in one sentence? I've done that for groups before, and I've heard 10 different definitions. And the conversations that came up after it, powerful, and it got stuff on the table that needed to be. Consider defining what it really is. You can concentrate anywhere, but if you spend some time on these elements, these basic elements of a team, you'll probably start to see a little bit of improvement. Something you can think about, looking at these attributes. So do me a favor. I want you to take a deep breath in through your nose. Deep breath in and out through the mouth. There's a lot in that one sentence. And I know when you're considering, you're like, oh, you're thinking of the people you're around, you're like, oh my God. Or you're like, hey, I got all this. Good. Can it be better? Can it be better? Can we help somebody else out? That's what we're really out there. We're out there as professionals trying to create that environment for other people to win. How can we go ahead and help everybody else level up, actually add some sunshine to this world? We need to do that. Seeing what we can observe is a big thing. And one thing we can observe is how people interact with one another. Remember I was saying people sometimes forgot how to people? It's amazing what you see if you're hanging out. Grocery store. Actually, that's a great place to see it. Grocery store, watching people bump into each other in the carts. It's amazing. But you're like watching, and you're like, huh, that's an interesting behavior between people. Or at a restaurant. You ever seen someone get all angry at a waiter? You ever seen that? You see how people interact, and it says a lot of what's going on. You, as a leader in your organization, need to start to be, let me hone in and start to look for some behaviors. And that's what I want to talk a little bit about, expanding on some of these things we were just talking about. I want to talk about a word that some of you maybe have seen before. The word is dysfunction. And this is how I like to define it for you and what you'll find in like dictionaries: an abnormal or unhealthy interpersonal behavior or interaction within a group of people. Think about the time you've seen people hanging out, group of friends out at dinner, hanging out at the ball game, maybe at a concert. You see some back and forth, interesting things said or not said. That's what I want you to think about. Interpersonal behaviors. That's what we're going to be talking about. This is very different than bad Scrum. Completely different. I'm talking about a misunderstanding of a particular framework. That's one thing. These interpersonal behaviors can be present regardless of how you are working together. So I need you to make sure this is not bad Scrum. These are behaviors we want to think about. So thinking back to those people with the 3 words. You remember your 3 words? Think of those people. Think of their faces. Think of their names. I need to make some phone calls after this. You got them in your mind? Okay. Thinking of those people, I want to ask you some more questions. In that group, do you know someone in that group maybe who doesn't ask for help because maybe it shows some weakness? I can't ask for help. I'm going to look bad. I'm going to keep my head down. You know someone like that? What about this? Do you know somebody in that group that maybe jumps to conclusion? The jump to conclusions, Matt. Wish I would have made that. What about somebody who doesn't look for positive intent and always ascribes negative intent? Do you know someone like that within your group? What about this? Do you know someone who maybe wouldn't say something because they're worried about it going somewhere else, being escalated? Think about that. Maybe none, I hope, but maybe one or more. When you're thinking about being vulnerable around a group, showing weakness, That can be an uncomfortable spot for a lot of people. And there's a big word around this that I want to share with you, because I want you to think about the feelings that you get when you hear this word, where it resonates in your chest, your neck, your head, your heart, your stomach. What do you think of when I say the word trust? It's a big word. When you put your trust in someone, I'm sharing something you in confidence. You're putting your trust in someone. I want to tell you something I've never told anybody else. It's showing some trust. Hey, I want to be really honest with how I'm feeling right now. That's trust. Being able to be yourself, but not just yourself in like that 100 grit, I tell it like it is. You have that friend, I tell it like it is. Are they actually being vulnerable, exposed, unguarded, comfortable knowing whatever they say, I can keep it here in the squad? That's what it means to trust somebody. That's what it means to trust the members of your team. The thing is, there are a lot of interpersonal behaviors related to teams that have an absence of trust. This is a situation where people are unwilling to be vulnerable in front of the rest of the group. You put on the mask. Think about it. Do you know someone who maybe holds back a little bit like that? Worried about escalation? This is worrisome because people who are not open with one another, how can you even go anywhere in that relationship, personal or professional? You can't build the foundation unless you can do that. I see so many names right now for being here. Team, thank you for coming out. There are so many of you I can't wait to see. And I've had so many good conversations with so many of you where it's like, I know that I can share things and talk and be myself and be vulnerable. And I appreciate that. And I hope you have a lot of people like that in your lives. I hope you have that on your teams. I really do. When you can't be open with one another because you're worried about it's coming back to hurt you, oh, that's a bad spot to be in. Real bad spot to be in. You need to create that environment where people can be vulnerable, human around one another. This is the foundation that the house is built on. We can't move forward as a squad unless we have this foundation being vulnerable, being open, being unguarded. That's the place we need to work from. So let me ask you some questions about this. Think of that group. Do you know somebody who maybe holds back a bit when they want to speak their mind, pulls their punches, maybe doesn't say the whole thing, sugarcoats it? What about somebody who maybe prefers back channel discussions, political discussions? You know somebody who likes that? Oh yeah, let's take that offline. Whisper a little bit. You know somebody in your squad that prefers that? What about somebody who maybe avoids those topics that are a little bit controversial, might upset the people in the room? I don't want to say this is going to make everybody upset. Look at those three. On your squad, do you know anybody maybe who prefers that? Maybe you. Well, here's another word that I want to share with you that I want you to think about again. See where it resonates with you, where you feel it. Do you feel it in your chest, in your hands, in your neck, in your head? Think about this word. The word, it's not Hadouken. No. The word is conflict. Where'd that hit with you? Was it here? Here? Was it here? People don't realize that conflict is a necessary part of life. And not all conflict is destructive in nature. Some conflict is constructive. Have you ever observed a group of people attacking the problem? Voices are raised, emotions are high, but they want to solve the problem. We got to do this. That's fine. That might be constructive. Squad I used to work on, we had creative tension. But here was our rule. You don't attack the problem. Or rather, you don't attack the person, you attack the problem. You don't want to attack the person. Attack the problem. We want to solve the problem. And if we do that with energy, with fire, with passion, maybe a little bit of anger, with energy, let's solve that problem together. It can be constructive conflict. Not every conflict has to be destructive. People hear the word conflict and sometimes they think, yelling, or they think, passive aggressive, snippy emails. Let me go ahead and escalate to this. Let me get nasty with you. Some people think it's a knockdown, drag out street fight. But not every group can have that type of passionate, unfiltered debate. If you're around a team that you can be open and honest and vulnerable with, you can have that knockdown, passionate, unfiltered, emotional, raw debate because you are attacking the problem, not a person. And there are some teams that have a fear of this type of interaction. They do not have the ability to engage in this passionate and unfiltered debate. You may have been around people like this. I have. And it's tough to get there sometimes if you're not a real team. Can you really actually say things? This is where teams will actually kind of pull their punches, kind of put a little bit of cheesecloth on top of it. I'm going to hold back a little bit, play my cards close to the vest. Oh, this might ruffle some feathers, but no, it's okay. I'm going to go along with it. It's a dangerous place to be because think about a situation where it's like, oh, on our team, people get really quiet when the sicky stuff comes up. You ever felt that way? Well, then you're asking around, be like, okay, well, why is that? Well, anytime you put yourself out there, it can get you really in trouble. What do you mean get in trouble? It's like, well, whatever I say might cost me that promotion. You ever felt that pattern or seen it? I have, unfortunately. I don't want to bring this up. Raise your hand. That's going to get you noticed. I'm trying to move up. If I say something, somebody else might use that against me and get that promotion, and I want it. I don't trust you. These are all linked together. All of them. All these behaviors are intertwined. Think about this. How about think about your group. Think about somebody who does this. You might have some, hopefully you don't. But I want you to think, do you know somebody who maybe delays decision just a little bit? Love the exclamation, the apostrophe. Thank you, autocorrect. Delays decision unnecessarily, just to be sure. You ever been around? Let's get to that in the next meeting. Can we table that? Somebody who does that a lot, maybe 2-3 times. What about somebody who encourages people to second guess what they do? You sure about that? Oh yeah, you could do that if you want, but I don't know if I were you. I don't know. You could do whatever you want. But IDK, law. You know anybody who does that? Imagine if I'm working with you. I'm like, well, you could do that. I don't know. You might second guess yourself. What about somebody who helps to breed that lack of confidence? We can't mess up. If we fail, it is all, we cannot fail. We got to be careful. Push it off. Let's just not make a call for fear of messing up. You know anybody who acts like that? I know a few. Not on my team, but on others that I've worked with. Because when you're thinking about that, just to be sure, let's hold off a little bit. There's another word I want you to think about, and think about where it hits with you. The word is commitment. It's a big word. As a team, to actually say, okay, let's get this done. We have heard from everybody. Let's get this done right here. That feels really good as a squad to make that kind of a call. That's awesome. But not every team can do that. Think about what it takes to make a decision as a group, 10 people or less. Shoot, it's hard enough to say, where do you want to go to dinner? You have that friend that never knows where they want to go to dinner? I was just chatting with one earlier. But think about it. What if you have to make a real decision? Solving a really tough problem. Facing a really big challenge. Some teams are equipped to do that. Others, maybe they don't. Some teams actually lack the ability to make that commitment to one another. This is a scary thing to consider. Teams that lack that ability to commit, say, this is what we're going to do. This is like, let's push that decision off a little bit more. Think about those times. Well, let's table that till the next meeting. You ever had one of those? I was with a group. Let's table it. Let's table it. Let's table it. And basically it kept getting added to new business for the next meeting until eventually it fell off. You ever seen that? I'm just going to run out the clock. This is where you're trying to cover your bases, hedge your bets. We want to make sure that we're making the right decision, but you can never be truly sure. So let's just run the clock out. Why does this happen though? It happens because you maybe didn't hear from everybody. Teams can rarely make a decision if we haven't heard from everybody. They might say, oh yeah, I really like that. Yeah, maybe. It's like a pump fake. Don't pump fake. Yeah, let's do that. We can commit when we hear from everybody, when we've gotten everybody's ideas. If we don't hear from everybody, it's kind of hard for me to say, yeah, let's do this, squad. Let's do this. I agree with that, kind of. And this is all linked all the way back to trust. Think about it this way. We struggle making decisions as a group. I remember I had someone tell me that once. We talked about it a bit. It's like, well, why not? Why is that tough? Because not everybody really contributes to the solution. Well, why don't we hear from everybody? Those controversial viewpoints don't get shared. People used to speak up. They're quiet now. Why? Maybe whatever they said last time got them sent down to talent, got them in trouble. They're off the team now because they rocked the boat. It's all linked together. It's all linked together. What about someone who does like this? What about this? Do you know somebody like this? Somebody who creates resentment, or there's really an undercurrent of resentment based on differing performance standards? Think of it this way. Remember how I said that friend or coworker that comes in 5 minutes late to every meeting? Do you have someone like that? Do you know someone like that? When was the last time they were called out? Imagine working in a place where someone gets away with some behaviors that maybe other people would be held to a different standard. Imagine that organization where just because someone can do something a little bit faster, a little bit better, or a little bit different, they're given just a little bit extra space. You ever been in a place like that? I've seen this front and center. And there's a dangerous message that gets sent. If someone's behaving out of line and they're allowed to do that, that behavior is going to keep growing. And it's going to send messages to other people. What type of behavior is allowed, condoned, or rewarded? Imagine rewarding bad behavior. What message does that send to the person on their first day of the job? They see somebody else doing something they shouldn't. Think about the resentment that could brew from that. You ever seen that? What about this? What about people who are reluctant to actually call someone out on those issues that are really impacting the team moving the needle forward? You ever seen that? Again, late to every meeting. Why haven't you said anything? Well, no, you don't say anything to them. You can't. Why not? No, just don't ask. Just don't ask. You can't. You're just, shh. I'll tell you later. I'll tell you this. I'll text you. Why though? Why can't we call them out? What about a group that instead of trying to handle it in-house, you always say, oh, we can just call the team lead in or escalate it up. And that's the source of discipline, not here. You ever worked in one of those places? I have. Someone's in trouble. You couldn't just hash it out. You have to go call somebody else. Well, I'm going to call so-and-so. Oh, you're going to get a message from so-and-so. It's an uncomfortable spot to be in. Because the word that I want to say is one that you've already heard before, just earlier tonight. Think about where it hits when I say accountable. So I already told you what it is all about. See something, say something. To have that level of accountability as a team, it takes time to get there. A lot of people mix up the words accountability and conflict in this model. I know a lot of people like, oh, we've got people who've got no problem calling each other out. Really? I want you to think about those people who like to challenge people and call them out. Here's the question I have for you. Can that person who dishes it out, can they take just as well? When was the last time someone called them out? I've actually talked to people at that. I've observed people. I come and observe our team. I sit down, I say, can you take as well as you can give? Like, what do you mean? I was like, when's the last time you got called out? Because the way their behavior was, somebody should have said something a long time ago. You might have somebody in your mind right now that you're thinking of. When was the last time somebody said something? When it comes to accountability, team members have to really sink their teeth into this and say, okay, are we going to speak up when somebody is impacting the goals of this team? And we just might straight up avoid this kind of conduct. It's an unwillingness to call other members out on behaviors that impact the team. This is a dangerous place. That elephant in the room is looming, and it's like, is anyone going to say something? No. We can't call them out. And it's like, this pattern exists. We get to this place and no one says something and everyone's waiting to say it and no one will. But consider, why wouldn't they say it? It's probably linked to a whole bunch of this. People won't speak up about people with poor performance. Well, why is that? Well, it's really hard to speak up when we never knew what we were supposed to do in the first place. We couldn't come up with that collective goal. We couldn't do that because we didn't hear from everybody. No one shared their thoughts. Why didn't people share their thoughts? Because it's really uncomfortable on this squad to be outside of the majority. You ever felt like the one person on the outs? I have. It's really uncomfortable. Well, why does it feel that way? Last person that spoke up, you want to know what? They got written up. You seen this pattern? I've seen it. I still see it. It breaks my heart. Think about that. These are all linked together. It's all linked together. What about this? What about someone who gets distracted? I want to go ahead and just fold paper. Or you know what? I'm only going to worry about my own success. You know, somebody who's really worried about winning on their own. You know, someone like that? I know someone like that. What about this? Imagine that new team member comes on. And it's like, hey, you want to know what? If you really want to get ahead here, here's what you need to do. You need to worry about number one. You need to keep your head down. You need to get on that good side. You know, you take care of business and you get in with the right people. Don't worry about them. They're in the, you need to take care of you. Ever heard that? I was told that. You take care of business. You worry about number one. I worry about number one. Don't get me wrong. A lot of times, though, people in my orbit got to take care of each other. Imagine hearing you take care of only worry about yourself. Bad flashback on that one. What about somebody on your squad or somebody that you know who's overly concerned with making sure that they're successful just in my lane? I'm going to make sure I'm going to stay in my lane. Do you ever know about that? Ever know somebody about like that? I'm only going to worry about what's happening in this department as opposed to over there. Those people in marketing, they need to figure it out. Here in delivery, we got it. Marketing, whatever, they can figure it out. Sales is getting it done, but ops, oh, God, those folks over there. You ever heard something like that? I have. It's sad. Because when you think about that, there's a big word that I want to put on your radar. I want you to think about how you feel when I say this one. The word is results. When I say results, I mean winning as a team. Being able to celebrate together, that is when it tastes the best. Being able to high five your friends, to look at each other and smile, to be across the stage and look at each other like, yeah, that's a hit. To be able to see the line on the TV go up, you see the news report, you're like, that's us. We did that. Can't tell anyone, but we did that. Ringing the bell. It feels great. And I really hope that you felt that at some point. But think about how good that is. Winning as a team feels great when you have something to rally around. But imagine those situations I was just describing to you, somebody who worries about their own lane. I'm worried about what's in my department, because sometimes on groups, when they come together, they're trying to be a team, people lose sight of winning as a squad. And instead, they focus on their own objectives, their own goals, not looking at it collectively. This is a real dangerous place. And I see this where it's like, I'm going to put my own needs or my own department's needs ahead of the collective goals of the group. I don't care what happens in marketing, as long as in our department, we're fine, doesn't matter what they do. Come on. If sales would just figure it out, we're doing fine in delivery, but you know, they're whatever. Ugh. You're losing sight of winning as a squad. It's like saying the hole's on your side of the boat, not mine. I'm taking care of business. You're all going to sink. It's upsetting. You know something that sounds like that to me, especially in the context of the work that we do? How many of you have heard the phrase, at least I got my stories done? You heard that? We've lost sight on that collective work product we're trying to do. We're trying to create something to put in front of people and say, hey, we made this for you. What do you think? All of us did. I got my work done. You've heard that? Seem to hear that every week. We've lost sight of winning as a team. We're just keeping our head down and staying in our lane. Think about the ripple effect of this kind of behavior. It's all linked together. People are only worrying about their own lane. Why are they only worrying about their own lane? Well, no one's called them out on that bad behavior. They're just keeping their head down. Why haven't they been called out before? Because we never made a decision as a group. Why haven't we made a decision as a group? We didn't hear from everybody. Well, no one's ever going to offer up a different perspective. Why is that? Members are really worried about speaking up. These are controversial topics. What happened to the last person that spoke up? They're out of here. And as a result, you want to know what? We just don't trust one another. It all goes back to trust. It all goes back to trust. And when you zoom out and you look at it that way, it's like, wow. There are a lot of behaviors that maybe is going on right now that if you look around, you might see some of them. It's a scary place to be sometimes. but there's hope. The first is you have to consider how these are linked together and how it almost always goes back to trust. If I can't be open and unguarded and vulnerable, how in the world will I ever be able to have that passionate, unfiltered debate with a coworker or a team member? I can't. I will not be able to do that. If I can't hear from everybody, along with the rest of my staff, we won't be able to collectively commit towards making something a reality. Why? Because maybe we didn't hear me, because we can't have constructive conflict, because I'm afraid of what I say in front of one another. We don't call each other out. Why don't you call each other out? Because we never rallied around a true flag and say, this is what we're trying to get done. We didn't hear from folks. I don't really feel like losing that promotion. At least I got my stories done. Why would you ever say that? Well, no one's ever going to call me out on that. Why not? We never figure out what we were going to do in this sprint. Why didn't we do that? Well, we didn't hear from everybody because someone else told us what to do. Why didn't you say that wasn't right? Because you want to know what? The last person that said something, they're on the way out. It's all linked together. You have to start to consider what behaviors can you observe. Maybe it's a once in a while blip, but think about the times when you've held back. Think about the times when you wanted to have passionate debate and you didn't. Think about the times where you kicked it down the road. Let's be sure. Think about the times when you wanted to tell that person they were 5 minutes late. Think about the time you heard someone say, I got my work done. They're all linked together. So here's some takeaways I want to offer you. These are some takeaways. First, concentrate on creating an environment where people can be vulnerable around one another. Look for that. And I'll tell you right now, you want to know how people will start to open up? Be vulnerable yourself. You don't have to be a battleship. It's okay to be human. It's okay to say, I don't know. It's okay to say, folks, I need some help. It's fine. If other people see you as a leader in your organization do that, they're going to say, okay, it's fine for me to do that also. That's one thing you can do. Here's another thing you can do. You want to passionately debate the important stuff. Think it like when you zoom back, be like, okay, what are we trying to tackle? And be like, okay, is this important to our work? Okay, let's attack the problem, not the person. Just saying that in a group setting, look, let's attack the problem. Let's not attack the person. Just that might refocus everyone's energy on the task in hand. But try to debate that important stuff that's really core to your purpose as a group. Try to debate that important stuff. That's fine. But remind them what they're attacking, the problem, not the person. You want to make decisions with clarity. You want to make decisions as a group with confidence. You want to talk about how do we make decisions as a group? Do we poll the members and then everybody in the minority gets tossed out? Sorry, 6-4. Have you ever been on the losing end of a 6-4? It doesn't feel good. Maybe we have to draft a better way to make decisions on a group. Talk about how you make decisions. Ask the question, is there something else we need to hear before we make this decision? Has everyone spoken up? Have we heard all the different points? Have we considered things? Here's another point. Okay, now passionately debate it, but let's hear from everybody and feel good about the call that we make. Here's what we're going to go, team. Break. Let's rally. Consider calling each other out when needed, when appropriate, but from a place of teamwork. You are my team member. That's not okay. Hey, that's not okay. When's the last time you might have said it? That's not okay. There's times when it's super uncomfortable. I get it. But if we have the courage to do that, that's not okay. I don't mean public shaming, by the way. I got to be said. I'm never a fan of making someone look like a fool when they have an audience. Sometimes it's a, come here. That's not okay. Sometimes you have to do that. But you want to know what? In a group setting, if someone needs to be called out, you're late again. Dude, again? Can we not do that? Oh, I'm sorry. Call it out when it's needed from a place of teamwork. This is your team member. Needs to be from that place. Needs to be from that place. You want to focus on winning as a team. I know in so many organizations, it's tough because Obviously, you have to take care of your stuff. You got to make a lot of people happy. But if you're really on a team, it's like, okay, here's our purpose. Here are the indicators for our purpose. Here's how we're going to work together. Can we rally around and get a win together that we can celebrate as a group? Focus on winning as a team. When you can say, this is what we did, as opposed to, look at what I did, it's a completely different ballgame. It's a completely different ballgame. I'll tell you, teamwork is very, very hard. It takes time. It takes effort. It takes emotion. It takes sweat. It takes tears. Boy, it's hard, but you want to know what? When you see things happen that you've done collectively and you can sit back and go, wow, so many people are going to remember what we just did. Or when people come up to you and say, this was amazing. Or someone comes up to you and says, thank you. My life is so much easier because of the work you've done. It's amazing. Remember how I told you my team? Diverse, aligned, family. There was a moment in one event where we were awarding trophies to people. We give medals out to the final 8 competitors. And I was handing out these medals, and I always shake hands. I say, hey, congratulations. Thank you for coming out. And I got to this one competitor and they said, Chris, stop. And I said, what's up? They said, I need to tell you something. I said, what's up? And they said, 10 years ago, and they pointed down to another competitor, I saw you give that competitor a medal. And I was a lot younger. And I said, I want to do that. I want to be on that stage. And I have worked every single day to get to this moment. I have worked to be a part of this event. And I said, I want to get one of those medals. I want you to give it to me. This is the happiest moment of my life. And I was like, I was overwhelmed. This is the happiest moment of my life. Imagine hearing that. And that's not me. I'm just a guy that tells jokes. That's the effort of hundreds of people, hundreds of volunteers, all this hard work to create the environment. And someone said, that's the best thing that's ever happened to me. And I've heard stuff, I hear stuff like that every single year. And you want to know what? That's winning as a team. Because when people hear that, it's like, wow, we're doing some good in the world. Someone is going to leave with one of the happiest memories they'll ever have. When you can do that as a team, that's worth it. And I can't wait to see my friends to do that again. Take a deep breath in. I know I got a lot of heat on that. Take a deep breath in. I need a breath too. Out through the mouth. A lot of stuff. A lot of things to think about. Well, I told you I was going to give you a takeaway. I said, I'm not going to leave you empty-handed. So guess what, folks? We've got a takeaway for you. All those questions that I wanted to ask you earlier, guess what? I went ahead and made something for you, both on the dysfunctions as well as the basics. That link right there will take you to a page where you can download a little takeaway with all the stuff that you heard about in that session. Hopefully, some of you go ahead and get a check. I just put it in chat and it's right there on the screen. So if you wanted to copy it also, for the organizers, if we wanted to post this on the link to the meetup, totally can do that. We can follow up afterwards. It's also up on the website right now at sparkplugagility.com in case you wanted to check it out later on. My hope is that these questions will help you explore these issues and start to look for what attributes and what behaviors you want to look at. Folks, that is something that is so important to me when you're looking at behaviors and you're seeing what to do and what levers to pull. And if you want more and know what's inspired me around these things, here's where you can read some more about it. This book, The Wisdom of Teams, has inspired a lot of our work and led to a lot more research. They set some things up in such a powerful way to learn about how groups of people can come together and not just change industries, but change the world. This is not an Agile book. This is a people book. And it was written a while ago, but I cannot give you the biggest recommendation to check this one out. And if you want to read more about those dysfunctions, Patrick's book is fantastic. I've had people like, oh, well, I've heard Patrick's book before. It's like, did you really read it? Did you really read the intricacies about how these are linked together? Because a lot of people I run into is, oh yeah, trust, conflict. Okay, talk about it. How's it related? And they're like, ow, ow, ow. The story they tell to set up the model before explaining it is fantastic. Can't say enough good things about both of these books. Can't say enough good things. I have to say thank you To everyone who came out to see me, I appreciate you so much. To the organizers of the meetup, Jamie, thank you so much for reaching out to share with me. For those of you who just heard some of this stuff earlier, I hope the remix was good. But folks, that's all I have for you this evening. I really appreciate you making the time, especially after a long day, to come on out and hear me tell jokes. We'd love to hear from you. And again, if the trainer immersion program sounds interesting to you, can't wait to work with you. Can't wait to work with you. Folks, thank you again, Jamie Lamb. And let me hand it back to you. Thank you, Jamie.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for coming out. Thank you, everyone who gave up part of your evening to join us at Scrum Masters of the Universe. Have a great night. We're just going to end it there. So have a great night, everyone. Chris, again, thank you so much. It was awesome. Bye, everybody.